Hello makers, welcome to 3D Maker Noob. I'm Joe and today I'm going to show you how to do velocity painting on your models. Stick around. Welcome back makers. So as you probably know, a couple of months ago I uploaded a video on the channel which showed velocity painting. Well, it was more like an introduction to velocity painting. I was on Twitter and I came across a guy named Mark Whedon who had developed this style of imprinting images onto models by changing the speed of the extruder or the speed of the print. Now, I made that video and I did a gorgeous droplet vase with a heart and a skull because it was Valentine's Day. But in the meantime, a lot of things happened. Since then, Mark sort of hooked up with a guy named, I'm going to pronounce this really bad. I think it's Gilom. And they developed a UI, a user interface. So basically, kind of like an app or software which you can install on a PC. And now everyone can actually do this. Now before, if you remember correctly, I said that it was very complicated to do and I had to send the STL files to, or the G-code to Mark in order for him to imprint the image because it was a very complicated process which I had no idea how to do. But yeah, so now there is a user interface for it, which makes it accessible to pretty much everyone, no matter what your printer is and also no matter what your slicer is. And these are some test prints that I did. I initially did this. This is a vase and I wanted to print the logo of BCN 3D. I did this with the Sigma R17. It was my first time, so I was just testing it out. Unfortunately, it didn't come as good as I wanted it to because I set the speed a bit too high for it, so it was under extruding quite a lot. Because you have to remember that it's the same amount of extrusion that comes out, it's just the speed that increases. So I decided to move on and start something else. Now, in the meantime, Rigid.ink finally got their PETG back in stock. So I got some red and some orange. So I threw the red into the Trinus and I sliced this little cat right here, which I kind of wanted to have the leopard effect on it. So I found a monochrome image online of like a leopard skin. I ran it through the UI and imprinted it on the model. And it turned out absolutely gorgeous. I was extremely happy with the results. So once I got that sorted out and I kind of figured how the UI works, they do have a website now and you can download the software. I will link everything in the video description. There's also very good instructions on how to do this. However, I thought I would still like to do something very special with this. And in comes Arya, the dragon. However, before I get into this, it's obviously worth for me showing you guys how I processed all of this in Simplify 3D and then through the UI. So the first thing you're going to need to do is open your favorite slicer. In this case, I'm going to use Simplify 3D. And you're going to want to import the model, which in this case is Arya the Dragon, which is designed by Noob, who also did Adelinda. As you can see, she has quite a taste for dragons. Once you open the model, you're going to want to scale it to your preferred size. Now, seeing that I printed this on the Creality CR10, I could use a larger scale. So I increased it by about 250% because, well, it fit. Once I did that, I went through the settings. I checked that everything is fine, the layers were okay, the outline perimeter shells were 3 because I mainly print pretty much everything with 3 shells. and I did an interior fill percentage of 15%. I usually use 10, but for this model I decided to do 15. Now, seeing as I'm using Rigid.ink PETG for this, I decided to put the bed temperature at 70 degrees and the extruder at 235 degrees, which is pretty much the limit of the PETG. Now, usually I set the temperature higher than that in order to leave the fan at 100%. However, I reduced the temperature slightly and dropped the fan speed to 75%. Once that was all done, I went into the speed settings. Now, very important thing here is when you select the speed that your printer is going to run at, it's very important that the outline speed and solid infill speed or any other speed, they're all set to 100%, as in everything runs the same speed. It's very important because then you let the user interface regulate the speed of the print. So once that's done, you slice the model and you have a preview of it. Save the model in your preferred folder, and then what you're going to do is open the Velocity Painting app in order to start the whole process. The first thing you're going to do is load the G-code that you have just sliced in your slicer, and then you're going to want to load an image that you want to, well, project on the model. I put in the UI, and then I started playing around with the settings. Now, one thing you're going to need here is to know ideally the dimensions of the model you're about to print. In this case, the width of the model is 110 or 107 millimeters, but seeing as the image that I downloaded is fairly square, I'm going to set it at 200 because I don't want it to be too small. Then I'm going to see the height, which is the z-axis, and I'm going to write 310, just because it's slightly more. Also, I'm going to set a z offset of 0 because I want the image to be projected over the entire model. I don't want it to start at any certain height. Then I'm going to set a target speed of 55 millimeters a second. I'm going to set the low speed of which it's going to do the image itself at 20 millimeters a second. And I'm going to set a high speed of 55 millimeters a second as well. Next up, you're simply going to set the coordinates for the center of the print bed. Now the Creality has a 400 by 400 print bed. So naturally the center is half that. And finally, all we're going to do is choose what kind of projection or paint type we're going to do. You have the x-axis projection. Now the x-axis or the projection X will actually put the image on the front, facing the front of the model. So it will just literally traverse the model from front to back. If you choose the projection Y, it will go on the Y-axis and project the image from side to side. Projection Z will project the image from top all the way to the bottom. Use cylindrical if you are running an image which you want to wrap around a vase, for example, or spherical where you want an image to be kind of wrapped around in a spherical way around a model. But in this case, we want the image to go from projected from front all the way into the model through the back. Click on Generate. It'll take a couple of minutes depending on the size of your model, but if it's a small model, it should only take a couple of seconds. Now the website does have a page where you can actually view the G-code to see if you did it right or if it's going to look right. In my case, all I do is drag the G-code from where I saved it directly into Simplify 3D, and it instantly goes into the sliced image sliced model preview mode. And as soon as it loads up, you're going to see it. You're going to see that if it's perfectly fine as you wanted it or no. In this case, it worked perfectly fine. The green areas are the high speeds and the blue areas are the slow speeds. Now you'll notice there's a bit of like light blue, and that is the watermark on the image. It actually takes that as slightly slower speeds, but it's not going to affect it that much. Ideally, when you choose an image, don't use a watermark. Once that is done, you simply grab the G-code, throw it on an SD card, and start printing. 28 hours later, and we have Arya the dragon. And I gotta say, I really couldn't be happier with the way this turned out. Aside from the fact that I dropped it and I broke part of the tip of the wing, which I had to put back together with glue. Didn't come perfect, so I'm a bit mad at myself. But other than that, the effect is absolutely gorgeously insane. It's just glorious. The way the light refracts from the PETG is beautiful. And obviously with these models, the best thing you can do is use translucent PETG, PLA. Like for example, this is printed in Matterhacker's Aqua PLA, and these two in Rigid.ink PETG. Now, translucent will always give you a nicer effect because the faster it goes, the thinner the lines, so the light refracts at a different angle, so it becomes very prominent. And I highly suggest you try this out for yourself. That is it for me, guys. I just want to give you a bit of tutorial on how to do this amazing process. I'm so happy that it got to this point from just a small conversation that I had with Mark. I'm not saying that this all came to be because of me. It definitely not. All credit goes to Mark for inventing this this way of printing. And a huge thank you also to, I'm hoping I'm saying it right, Guillaume, for creating the user interface and making it accessible to absolutely everyone. I couldn't be more happier for them. I will leave a link in the video description for all the models that I printed. I will leave a link for where you can get these awesome filaments. I will also leave a link for where you can download the software, Mark's Twitter account, Guillaume's Twitter account, so you can follow their progress. And I do hope that you print many things. And always remember that when you print something with velocity painting, you always use the hashtag on Twitter or Facebook. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Once again, please subscribe, share, so more people will discover this awesome way of printing. Like the video if you have. And in the meantime, as always, happy making, guys.